Now let's look at the administration tab that we have here. So to explain this, it will take me to the next module, that is the back office sync tool. Okay, so the back office sync tool basically is an engine that helps the script connect to the back office that is configured in the configuration panel, that is here. So the script, so the back office sync tool will let will connect to the back office that is configured here and retrieve the data or the customer data. Okay, based on the ID that is added to the PNR. Now the back office sync tool has to be installed in at least one office ID of the agency sharing the same database. So if you have 10 office IDs in an agency, all sharing the same database, then it has to be installed, downloaded and installed in at least one of the office ID. Okay, so once it's installed, it will help the application connect to the back office that's configured in the configuration tab and retrieve the data. Now, if an agency does not have a back office configured, that is, if they are using the application database, which is a local database, then the back office sync tool will help push the customer data to it. And then those agencies can use that database as a source from where they can retrieve the data. Okay. Now let's see how we can download and install the tool. So for each agency having office ID sharing the same DB, the back office user account has to be created in touchless. This can be created by creating a work order and assigning it to the IT consulting and services team um, with the relevant information, that is the office ID, the agency name, and all that. Okay. The generated credentials are to be entered here, that is the username and password are to be entered here, and then you have to enter the back office directory path. Okay, so this can be used by the agency who do not have a back office compatible to the ones that we have, or the ones that CLC support, which is Trax, Panasoft, Systrix, and so on. So basically the user can place a file in the input path, okay, with the customer data. Okay, so here is where the path has to be mentioned. So this is one of the path that I mentioned before, and then they can simply place the file with the customer data in the path that is configured here. Okay, and if you see here, you can set the frequency as well. So once the tool is downloaded and installed, the customer data available in the input path, okay, is processed, and after it's processed, the file is moved from the input folder to the output folder that we have here. Okay, so you also have a report file that for which you can set the path here, which will give you an idea about the customer data that is processed, or if there are any errors while processing the data. Okay, now the processed data is then saved in the application database. So the data that was, or the file with the customer data that was placed in the input folder, once it's processed and the file moves to the output folder, the actual customer data that was available in that file is added to the application database. So the above mechanism will take place only if the checkbox process back office from input files is marked as true while downloading the package. Okay. Now the next checkbox, that is process back office from web service. What does that do? Herein, let's say that the agency has a back office configured. Okay, so it's not application database. Let's say that it's Trax. Okay, that is configured here. Now based on the frequency configured here, the tool will pick up all the customer IDs that are currently available in the application database, that is the local database, establish connection to the configured back office that would be configured here, get the latest data for those customer IDs that was picked up from the application database, and then update my application database. Okay, so in other words, if this feature is marked as true, the tool will collect all the IDs that are currently available in the local database, try to establish connection with the back office that is configured in the configuration tab, check if those IDs still exist there, in that is in the actual back office. If it exists, get the updated data and then update my application database. Now, why is this done? This will help the agency to keep the latest data in the application database as in the back office. Now, why do we need to keep the data in the application database updated? So if you remember, I spoke about a checkbox in the configuration tab. Do not fetch data from application database if no response received from back office. So if this is not true, that means that if my back office is down, then the data will be picked up from the application database. Hence, it's always necessary to keep the application database updated. Okay, so to avoid any discrepancy in the data. Right now, so that's about the first section. Now, back office web service integration options. Now, the following are certain optional parameters that was developed specifically for Panasoft back office. Okay, so once the package is downloaded, so once you have entered all the data and once it's downloaded, you a zip file gets downloaded and you can extract it and place it in a location where you would like to. So you have to navigate to the unzipped folder. So I've downloaded and unzipped here. That's the latest version. And then right click on execute underscore stop, just to make sure that there are no related services running. Run it as administrator. And then execute underscore start. It's a batch file to run the service, start the tool. Okay. So once the service is started, you will see a folder that gets created here. That's the logs folder. So this will basically have all the logs related to the back office sync tool. So in case you have any issues with the back office sync tool, you can simply check the log or send it for investigation. Okay, it's captured with the timestamp. Right. So another way to confirm if the service is running is to click on start, type services, and then you see here you have the service named emedis.mena CLC back office synchronization that's currently running in your machine. Okay, now let's quickly see how we can push the data to the application database. Okay, so I have the file here. So this is the file which the agency or the agency can maintain or prepare and use the back office sync tool to push the data that's added to this file to the application database and use the application database as the source of data. Okay, now what are these comma separated values? I'll just quickly open the quick card that we have. So the first one is the customer type, that the demo2 is the customer type. The customer ID is 376, that gets added to the PNR. The type VIP1 is the customer name. Then you have the credit limit, which is 30,000. You have the consumed amount, which is 10,000. The available credit, 0. Again, these are just dummy values that I had created for the demo and testing purpose. And then is blacklisted is this next one. Is blacklisted is 1, which means the customer or the corporate customer with the ID 376 is blacklisted. It would have been 0 if it's not. The currency code is EUR. And then last updated on last PNR record locator. Again, these are optional values. You can just skip it. Available credit days is 20 and the credit days is 25. Okay, so this is how the customer or the agency can create customer data or maintain customer data. Now, how to push this to the application database is by placing that file in the input folder. So if you remember, I had mentioned about mentioning the path here. So this is the path wherein you will place the file. So the path that you have mentioned here. So when I had downloaded this package, the path that I have mentioned for the input folder is this. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll copy this path and I'll place this file here. And based on the frequency that I had set while downloading this package, so I'll just name it as demo video to test. Okay, I'll place it here. And then I think while downloading the package, yeah, I set it as 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, you will not find the file here. It would have moved to the output folder that's here. And in the report folder, you will have the status if there were any errors or stuff like that. Okay. Okay, so fast forwarded. Now if you see, you do not have the file placed in the input folder. It has moved to the output folder, and then you also have a timestamp that gets created. So this is the actual file that I had placed in the input folder. Okay. Again, if you want to see the report folder to verify if there were no errors, you can open it as as notepad, and then you see here all lines parsed successfully, and there's everything was processed successfully. Okay, there was just one customer data that was added. So successful report says that the data that was added to the file and placed in the input folder has been added to the application database. Okay, so the customer data of the format that I had mentioned here, which is there in the quick car that I'll share across, has to so that customer data in this format has to be added to the customer to the file. That file can be placed in the input folder, and then based on the frequency that you have set, you'll have all the customer data pushed to the application database, and then the file will be moved to the output folder. Okay, and then you can also view the report folder or the report folder with the latest report, just to ensure that all the customer data was parsed successfully or not. Okay, so this is the way in which you can use the back office sync tool to push data to the application database. Okay, for agencies whose back office is not compatible or is not listed in CLC. Okay, now let's look at the last tab, that is the customer data tab. Okay, now the data that is available in the application database is displayed here is displayed in the customer data tab. Okay, let me just quickly select another office ID which has customer data. Okay, so if you see here for this office ID, they have uh, a list of customer data that's available in the application database. Okay, so here the user can click on the sync button. So if you see here, you have a sync button. Okay, when you click on this, the back office sync tool will try to connect to the back office that is configured in the configuration panel. Okay, get the latest data for this customer ID from the back office and update it here. Okay, also if certain customer ID does not exist in the application database, you can add it on demand. You simply have to enter the customer ID here, a valid customer ID, and then the back office sync tool will capture this customer ID, connect to the back office that's configured in the configuration panel, get the customer data with respect to that customer ID that was added, and then update my application database, and it will be displayed here. Okay, um, yeah, so that's about it. That's the customer data tab all about.